Excellent, Jose. Thanks for having me, and welcome to everyone. Unfortunately, as Jose announced, I will not be able to share my video. Forgive me for this, but I hope this will be insightful anyways. And we will have a lot of topics to cover in the next 45 minutes. So my talk will be about end-to-end cloud transformation and governance, and I'm representing LenaX here. LenaX is a German-based software as a service vendor, originally in the enterprise architecture space, but we help our customers more and more also in the cloud-native governance and cloud migration space. But before I tell you 2 sentences about LenaX, just adding to what Jose said in the beginning and also to give you a picture. My name is Dominik. I'm 36. I'm a father of 3, and I'm a computer scientist. And sometimes I find myself in strange locations in business and in sales and the like. I'm still a nerd by nature, but I try to create value from a business perspective. And I was lucky enough in the last 5 years to help LenaX evolve from a startup into a global organization. Feel free to reach out afterwards via mail or connect on LinkedIn. More than happy to network. So as announced, LenaX is a German-based software as a service vendor, and we were born with the imperative to change the way architecture is been doing in companies. So architecture before has been a very expert-centric domain with lots of models, UML, BPMN, etc. around. What we are trying to do is to provide a great usable user interface with a high degree of automation and to democratize access to architecture data for many people in the company, be it business owner, be it leadership, but also project managers or support people. I'd like to share some thoughts about those 3 different topics with you guys today. Let's start a bit with some quick observations where we see the topic of cloud native in 2020, and also give you some clear recommendation why, if you haven't started yet, this is a clear imperative for every company and software development today. We will look a bit into the topic of cloud migrations and spend some time around why are we as an industry, as an IT industry, still so bad in conducting a transformation in time and budget. And finally, I hope I can give you also some nice ideas, some smart approaches that you can take home and change in your company to hopefully make it a bit better next time in terms of planning, in terms of governance. So let's start off and let's look into cloud native. So I don't tell you any news here. I mean, we are on a cloud conference, so cloud has arrived in the mainstream. 90% of companies are on cloud. People are talking about cloud only, cloud preferred strategy, and so on and so on. But still, cloud native is a topic with some misconceptions. There are a lot of customers on a good way, or a lot of companies on a good way. Obviously, cloud-born companies, but also a lot of cloud pioneers. And I would really recommend you to check out the CNCF case study site to learn also how classical companies tackle the challenge of a cloud-native migration and learn to embrace topics like DevOps, continuous integration, microservices, and so on. What's still important is if you're dealing with this topic, and again, this is nothing new, but it was reiterating, is it's a business decision to become cloud native. And it's also a business project to run your cloud migration. This is what our clients are telling us each and every day. It's so important to reach out to the business owner and understand, why are we actually shifting assets into the cloud? Why are we actually investing into microservices? To me, it comes down to those 5 points. It's about company USPs and focus. It's about agility. It's about IT security. It's about IT talent, and I cannot overstate this one because it's more and more important to get access to the right people, and it's also to be able to scale and to automate. We look into those topics very quickly. I mean, the focus topic again, it's nothing new, but it's so important to think about this again and again and again. A cloud transformation, a cloud native transformation help you to focus on what makes you great. You let go of networking, you let go of virtualization and the like if you feel that it doesn't create any value for you, and you focus on platform as a service or even on software as a service to run your business. Again, it's a business decision in terms of speed. Once you have workloads in the cloud with AWS, with Azure, don't expect that something is changing from day one. So only because your legacy system is now run with AWS, nothing is changing. But you need to consequently invest into state-of-the-art technologies to get your return on investment of a cloud migration. IT security. We launched a study last year within our customer base with EA and IT management practitioner, and we found out that one of the major obstacles on the digital transformation is still IT security. You will for a second blink and say, why is this a cloud adoption topic? For two reasons. One is, can your company really compete with the armies of cloud security specialists on AWS, on Azure, etc., or are your data not more secure there? But B, obviously, having your data in the public cloud will not relieve you from the responsibility to maintain it there, and building up a top-notch cloud security practice is something that you need to do in any case. Talking about talent, and this is so important those days, in particular in Germany, but I observe it also worldwide, is talent shortage is becoming a business risk for enterprises. Talent shortage is something that will distinguish the successful companies in the next years from the unsuccessful companies. And what does it mean? It does mean that you need to embrace an agile environment. You need to embrace an environment where talent can unleash their potential. You need also to take care to keep your existing talent. And all of this is possible if you allow people to navigate technology and be great technology adapters. And this is part of this cloud native initiative as well. I, as a technology guy, I as a developer, I'm motivated by modern technology. I'm motivated by using the latest stuff out there. And if one can reconcile this with the necessary governance that you need in a corporate, then this is a clear win-win situation. It's important to acknowledge that we are beyond the stage where this is only an opinion. There's evidence, and for example, you can check this Accenture study in here, that the investment into innovation, the investment into technology excellence is actually tied to business success, and nobody wants to be left behind, obviously. Yeah, so again, there are really good reasons not only to shift workloads into the cloud, but step by step embrace cloud native more and more. So I believe this was not really news, but more like potentially reconfirmation or some knowledge that you anyways had, but maybe it's some good facts in there that you can share when you go back to your companies. Let's now look into the topic of migrations and transformation as a bit more general one. There are so many good role models out there for successful transformations. So if we look into space, actually, into NASA, and just compare, for example, 1970 to 1984 to 2019, it's somehow possible to transform user experience, to transform value creation within just a few years. Other industries are capable of doing this, but still IT is not capable of really handling large transformations. And we look carefully into this topic and identified some numbers. When you talk to people, you get evidence that 70% of IT transformations are still failing in terms of not delivering in time or in budget. And when we listen to our customer base and others, we have identified those three core points: preparation, monitoring, and risk management. Again, no news, but still very important to think about this. And there's one more aspect. If you are responsible for the cloud migration in your company, you for sure have so many things currently on your plate. Starting out with things that you planned anyways, like, yes, you need another ERP system, or you need to merge or carve out your business unit. But now think also about COVID, like your entire operating model has been changing. So obviously your task is not only to coordinate like the right order to bring stuff into the cloud or make stuff more cloud native, but obviously it is heavily conflicting with other priorities out there as well. That said, it's also important to acknowledge that the cloud environment is still heavily evolving. So in a way, you're also transforming your things into a moving target. Still, AWS and Azure and GCP are growing, but still it's also clear that hybrid scenarios like private cloud with public cloud, they are the reality for so long time. So if you want to plan your transformation into the cloud, you also better prepare for evolving things and for the reconciliation of your cloud data with some private or hybrid cloud for a long time. So that said, and obviously saying that it's hard to do a cloud migration, then you obviously wonder right now, Dominik, what does it mean? What ideas can you share with us to actually make it potentially a bit better? So I want to give you 5 ideas right now, 5 ideas on how you can smarten your approach for planning and for governance of a cloud migration. And I would love to get into the discussion afterwards to challenge this and say, yes, this is working in my environment, or maybe, this is not working because of this reason. So let's start. Follow a cloud adoption framework. No news here at all. I mean, AWS and Azure and so on, they are telling the story again and again. But if we listen to pros in the cloud migration markets, then it's still very often that the basics are missing. The basics are missing to have a framework what to do with my workloads. And doesn't matter whether you're following AWS here or whether you're following Gartner or somebody else in terms of what do I actually do with my existing application, with my existing systems, but to have a concise understanding of what it means to rehost stuff, to replatform, to repurchase, to refactor, to retire, and to retain, and also have the cloud migration discussion around those 6 options. In particular, the retire option is a really interesting one as well, because whatever you decide you no longer need, you don't have to move. It makes you faster in the end. So to acknowledge the full spectrum of potential decisions when you move stuff into the cloud, or when you improve, or when you lift and when you refactor things which are actually already in the cloud, is obviously still key. Once you have it in place, your entire transformation can be cut down into 3 phases. And with transformation, I mean not something that is starting new tomorrow, but obviously you are in the middle of your transformation. And as argued before with hybrid cloud and so on, the transformation will be ongoing. So wherever you are today, it's important to think about what workloads do I have in the cloud today, which workloads do I want to bring into the cloud next, and then to plan out your migration, to understand the dependencies, to understand the business impact, like why are you actually moving things, and then understanding how is your landscape looking like in the future. Those are essentials for the planning phase. But then obviously, and we came to the error in the slide about the transformation as well, a plan will fail. A plan will fail if you're not supplemented with a governance. If you're not from day one understand the workloads that I have in the cloud, are they really meeting my expectations here? For example, if I have an AWS only strategy, then I want to be alerted if I see workloads appearing right now from Azure. Or if I have a PaaS strategy, then I want to be really careful to say, where am I still using plain VMs? Where am I not using AKS or Lambdas yet? And how can I react to this? And obviously also in terms of costs and in violation. From an architecture perspective, I want directly to understand, where have I been too fast, for example? Where did I just move some stuff into the cloud but did not follow best practice with AWS? And we learned about security already. Where do I still have some ports open? Where do I still have some attack vectors that will not only allow some attackers to think about how they can enter my environment, but even worse, or same as bad at the same time, it will also make my planning unreliable, because if I have to firefight all the time, close security holes, how can I follow the plan that I made in the very beginning? We looked into the 3 steps right now. It's often undervalued, but it's so important to bring everyone that is around the decision to the same topic. So now we already emphasized the value of the 6 R's as a framework, but now you want to have a map actually, and you want to go to your business stakeholders to say, hey, are you in line that we focus on customer relationship and that we try to increase our time to market next year? But also, did you realize that this means that we won't decommission some application in the corporate service or in the finance space, because there are obviously some trade-offs to do? All of a sudden, a map like this gives you the impact, or gives you the opportunity to talk to your stakeholders and derive joint decisions. And obviously, you also want to understand the dependencies. You want to understand to reach a certain objective, for example, to save some money in the cloud, to be faster in time to market in customer services, what initiatives are actually depending on each other, what initiatives are depending on the same people. And you want to be able to model out causal dependencies between 2 or 3 actions in order to get reliable roadmaps. In terms of tracking, it doesn't have to be complicated. Like from our experience, even an easy dashboard which contains some baseline KPIs, like which components, which workloads do I have, which providers, where am I spending my money, where do I understand the business context, be it because of tagging, be it because of account policy, but also even more important, where don't I understand my business context? Where do I understand who's responsible for a certain AWS or Azure account? Where do I understand security warnings? Even a simple dashboard like this is something that could tremendously accelerate and inform your cloud migration initiative. And then I admit I'm a techie, and I had it in the beginning as well. And if we were for a second look into our software development colleagues, then you will see that they are leveraging some nice stuff out there. And GitHub, for example, has very intuitive ways to think about changes and branches in a way. A change is not executed at first, but the change is planned out at a separate, what they call, branch. So they move away from the core documentation. They say, now I want to change my code, I want to test it, and only after a certain time I want to bring it back into my main trunk in order to have productive code. What if we can think about our architecture planning and modeling the same way? Like, what if we can think, fine, today we are standing here with marketing, we have Salesforce, we have an own CM, etc. Now, where do I want to stand in 2021? Where do I want to stand in 2022? And what if I'm following a cloud-only strategy? What am I following a multi-vendor strategy? What would be the implications on this? And this is actually something where LinaX tries to help companies by providing some tooling around setting up a transformation like this. Second point. So the first point was about the cloud adoption framework. The second point I'd like to share is some tendency we see often in the market. Don't stop with shifting. And I mentioned this already in the beginning about the rationals, but so often I still see companies stopping when they have their resources in the cloud. To underestimate the value of containers, of cloud native technologies like Lambda functions, for example, is something that will in the end hinder you from unleashing the full potential from your cloud. So again, it might be good to have a dashboard. It might be good to have some KPIs in place where you understand what is my IaaS to PaaS ratio. If I say I want to go cloud native, let's be sure not to underestimate the PaaS stuff. Let's be sure to invest time into those topics and not to stay just at the lift and shift. Third topic, and the third topic here is about, again, fundamentals. And you might want to say it's about a bit unsexy fundamentals, but it's again something that we are observing. The entire notion of tagging policy in the cloud, it's so important because there is no way to represent the business context natively with AWS, with Azure, and so on. You have to rely on a tagging policy. You have to rely on an account policy in order to understand what VMs are actually belonging to my CRM, what VMs are belonging to my website, and what VMs are no longer in use. And if we look into tagging, then we often see a framework like this around in companies. And all of the tags that you see in here, be it operations, be it security, be it others, they are well justified because this is so valuable information. But now you are a developer and you want to maintain all those tags. Yes, you have infrastructure as code, but still it's an enormous overhead to make sure every tag is provided the right way. And even worse, you want to change things. You want to say there's a new tag that I need, GDPR or some different things. And all of a sudden you need to touch your entire code base again to adapt your tagging. So what we are trying to do with customers is we're trying to help them rethink the tagging and let them think about what if I can maintain core information like responsibilities or core information like application name based on an inventory which is closed to my cloud. So for example, if I only add the application ID into my cloud as tags, then I don't need to update the name all the time. I don't need to update the department. I don't need to update the business capabilities, because I can rely on that the application ID will be mapped to everything else. In particular, will be mapped also to the ownership, because obviously your reality in your company is that business ownership, technology ownership is changing. And now you don't want to redeploy all your workloads all the time if an owner is changing, but you want to have an inventory where you have it centrally at one place, potentially even synced with identity management protocols like SCIM, to make sure that you always understand who's responsible for a certain account. And also, you want to democratize certain key information. You want to give the information directly to people if there's an alert, whether this is a production system or whether this is a development system, whether it holds classified data or not. And ideally, you would give this information to people not only like when they can access the AWS portal and incidentally can access the right account, but you want to give this information to a larger base in your company in order to speed up decision making. Similar topic, though not exactly the same, is about life cycles actually. Also the baseline, but still it's important to acknowledge how often things are changing with AWS, with Azure, and so on. And you might say, yes, this is fine, and my devs will take care about this. And yes, this is true to some extent. But now let's look deeper, for example, into AWS Lambda. And all of a sudden, you understand that the topic of technology obsolescence and old software is also there in a cloud environment, because old runtimes, for example, for Lambda, they are no longer supported. And this does mean not only that it has a potential vulnerability or that you cannot deploy anymore, but this would even mean that AWS can stop the service for you after a certain time frame in your critical application. So to be aware of those topics like lifecycle and risk and tagging is also a key foundation. The fourth topic I want to share is about knowledge. And we learned when working with our customers and peers that an efficient cloud adoption requires a joint understanding across involved parties, across C-level, obviously, across enterprise architects, across cloud architects, and across others. And this in a scenario where all the technology around the workloads that you have in the cloud, it's heavily evolving. And as I said in the beginning, you want to have latest technologies because this is attractive to your people and you can leverage the advantages. What we see is that no developer actually likes to document their stuff. So the developers are good at deploying new workload into the cloud, but documentation is something which is really not a strong topic for most developers. So what we are trying to help companies with is to move towards automated software documentation. Where is something deployed, what is deployed, and how it is supporting the business. And again, your development team, your development colleagues, they will likely think in automation. So they will understand that documentation can be a vital part of a CI/CD pipeline where they deploy their stuff. They can understand the value of linking whatever they have deployed into the business context, into the hosting context. So potentially you would bring much relief into your development team as well if you encourage them to document things in an automated manner, because in the end they can save valuable time but benefit from the outcomes. The final aspect I want to share is about the CMDB. And if I have cloud people in the call, they will most likely think a bit like, wow, CMDB, isn't this a term for the pre-cloud phase? What we learned to acknowledge with our customers as well is that it's time to rethink actually the role of a CMDB in companies. So I mean, on the one hand, you all understand that the entire dynamics of deploying things into the cloud changed so much. You have all the freedom and benefits of 1,000 cloud components. You can launch a server within 30 seconds. You have right now hundreds of decentralized teams, but can you still manage the complexity and the inventory and the information? And more important, a CMDB typically is suffering from low data quality already in the on-premise world. So how can a CMDB actually cope with something like this? What we learned and what I like to share as some clear insight from our side as well is that it's important to think hard about the different aspects of a CMDB or of an IT service management. We fully see and acknowledge that the core processes of incident and change management, they are as important for cloud native workloads than they are for on-premise workloads. But often we see that the support team, that the support agents, they have actually one job. They need to find out who to approach. They need to find out who is responsible for a certain VM, for a certain microservice, and then the level 2, level 3 understanding, it's directly with the DevOps team because they're actually running the software and they need this information directly at hand. So what we are trying to help companies with is, on the one hand, to provide this reliable information base into existing IT service management, so that your level 1 support has the information at hand, who is responsible for something. But on the other side, don't force everyone, and in particular, not force your development organization into a CMDB thinking, because this will typically hinder them in order to do their job. And LenaX is trying to provide tools for having a cloud native governance actually sitting in the middle of this to say, I have a platform for my cloud center of excellence, for the people that are responsible for cloud architecture, who can establish the right guidance to the left, so who can reach out to development teams and say, hey, you need to deploy those tags. You need to make sure that you are using those services with AWS, those services with Azure, and so on and so on. And on the other side, they are feeding core information into IT service management processes out of this, but they rely on a direct automation between the development organization and your support agents. And again, this is a way to think about this. What I would encourage you as a takeaway from this is to challenge the existing imperatives and to try to break out of this, to, for example, understand, is a classical CMDB still suited, still helping you to set up the monitoring that you need in the cloud age? But also, did you address those concerns? Did you address concerns like change management and incident management when planning out your architecture? So this leaves me with a quick summary. And what I try to bring over and try to argue for is, in the end, those 3 takeaways that I'd like to share here. So we learned a successful cloud adoption and a continuous successful cloud adoption, first of all, depends heavily on your ability to make objectives transparent, to make plans transparent. What do I want to have next year in the public cloud? What do I want to refactor? And what do I want to retire? If this is not transparent, then this would most likely run into errors. The second point I would like to share is there are good ideas out there to rethink cloud governance. Obviously, you need a cloud governance in order to operate your systems. We learned about IC security as well. For us, it's often the starting point with smart tagging, because without a tagging policy, you do not really know why you are deploying certain workloads in the cloud. You cannot think about showback or chargeback. You can have a hard time to handle violation or incident management. So smart tagging is the baseline for great cloud governance, but also challenging the role of a cloud CMDB, challenging how cloud architecture can work together with IT service management as part of this. And finally, what I also want to share is that it's not only the operational part, it's also the development part of DevOps that is so important. And if you have a practice in place where you have your software assets, your microservices automatically documented, where you understand who's responsible for something, where you understand how often you are deploying something, then this is tremendously helping as well to set up good practices in your cloud adoption and inform the business that you are actually able to do the right things. We are basing this on experience, so we are very in the lucky position to, on the one hand, work with tech-driven companies, but also work with transformation with digital enterprises who are actually transforming. So I would be very happy to now use the Q&As to also answer some more questions around those experiences that we have made in there. But I would be also happy to connect afterwards. Feel free to reach out, for example, via LinkedIn, and let me know if you have any deeper questions. Thanks for this. I believe I would hand it over to Jose right now.
Very good, Dominik. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm gonna ask you that if you can go back on your slideshow to where you had a summary, so that we keep those three items that you had as a summary, as perspective and context for our discussion. So we have a few minutes here for a Q&A, and what I would like to do, I'm gonna bring my camera on so the audience can see me, what I would like to do is to ask the audience, you have submitted already some questions here. I'm going to pick a few of them and relay them to Dominik. But if you have additional questions as you go to the end of the presentation here, please don't hesitate to type them in, because I'm monitoring the questions that are coming in, and I'll relay them to Dominik accordingly. Dominik, the first question that has come up has to do with the impact of the global pandemic on the cloud migrations and really the cloud work. Has it changed significantly? Has accelerated? Has slowed it down? What is your assessment working across multiple industries on the impact of the pandemic on what companies are doing with the cloud?
Yeah, so we have seen more in general that the pandemic is obviously a challenge to the companies that we are working with, but also a chance to push things forward, to push things like governance and also cloud transformation forward. So we have seen customers shifting heavily from classical application portfolio management into more like an application rationalizing process, forcing them to think about what are the applications that I really need to bring, for example, into the cloud, and where can I actually save my money in order to be more lean and more nimble. We even launched a feature earlier this year, which made it even easier to access the available software, be it in the cloud, be it on-prem, from home office as well, because all of a sudden your workforce at home is even more dependent on a really reliable infrastructure. And also we listen carefully to companies who right now need to take into account latency and need to take into account different availability zones, etc., where all of a sudden the need to go faster into cloud to leverage some of those advantages were more important. So in general, we witness that many IT organizations see this as a chance actually to boost those initiatives, because there are clear synergies with the situation.
Very well, very well. Thank you for that. The other question that has come up, and maybe more of a theme that I'm going to paraphrase for you, is that in your assessment, what has been the biggest challenge for organizations in moving to a cloud environment, or taking better use of the capabilities that you can have and the benefits that you can have in a cloud environment? Is it about is there a concern about is it a lack of knowledge in organizations? It is a concerns about loss of control? Is it concerns about security? As you work with those who have not fully adopted cloud, what do you see as the main barriers that they seem to present?
Yeah, it might be all three of them. Like, it might be knowledge, and if we look into ourselves, I mean, we are a cloud-born company. We are right now 300 people and 100 in development and product. And even we ourselves, we need to invest lots of time into building Kubernetes and Azure and the like knowledge, etc. So I still talk to clients from time to time which think about they can outsource a cloud migration. And to some extent, I believe the topic of knowledge and to accept that you need to build strong knowledge to run a cloud environment, this would be my number one pick here. The number two pick for me would be this classical dilemma between business and IT. I had some arguments to say in the end a good cloud migration is some business imperative and not some IT decision. Still, I see a lot of companies struggling with understanding the impact that IT is having, and also seeing IT often still as a cost center. And I see that many classical organizations that face this structure have a challenge in transforming themselves. Yeah. Even more important, I feel, when you're starting a transformation like this, then it's so important to make it transparent what you're actually doing, what the dependencies are, why you are doing stuff. I believe if you're not able to inform people why you are moving, in which direction you are moving, then in the end, such an initiative will most likely fail.
Very good. Those are very good perspectives, Dominik. And we have just a minute left here. So a final question is that for those organizations that have not, fully migrated in their process of doing that, what is your best advice to them if they are thinking about looking at cloud and the migration in a more structured approach? I mean, certainly that's what your entire presentation has been about. But if you focus on the most important thing that they need to do to start that automation, to start to establish cloud governance, what would you say? What is your best advice for organizations that are moving in that direction now?
I believe the best advice that I could give is not to try to boil the ocean. Actually, on our side in Linux ourselves, we also made some design decision in the past which were not like by the book in a migration. So, for example, we accept a monolith from time to time because it is a better way to get to the business value, and then we accept the technical debt and move ahead. So where I see companies struggling is when they try to improve everything at the same time. They try to improve the way they build and develop software. They try to improve the way they govern the cloud. They try to establish new tooling. So what we clearly see is that the foundations are so important. If you only go into your cloud environment today and look at the fact, what different VMs don't I understand why they are there and what are they costing? Easy, quick wins like this will make it simple for you to win over people and drive things by continuous success that you can show.
Very good. Dominik, Great presentation. Thanks for guiding all of us through a very methodical approach and a very good view of successful migrations. We appreciate you sharing your time from Cologne, Germany to the world today with our global audience. Very much appreciative of your time and insights.
Thanks, Jose, for having me. Enjoy your day.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Dominik Rose from LeanIX sharing his perspectives on end-to-end cloud transformation and governance. We are going to wrap up the session now, and at the top of the hour, we're going to have a leader from Microsoft discussing Azure governance and management. And I'm very excited to have Pierre Roman with us. He is a senior cloud operations advocate at Microsoft, and will provide great insights to us on cloud governance and management. So looking forward to that. I see all of you back at the top of the hour, and till then.